Again, as we were just saying though, family, we got a lot going on here at Big Boss Filmworks. So if you guys want to support our motions and our movements, um, you can go $ Big Boss Filmworks. That's a Cash App. $ Big Boss. No donation too big, no donation too small. Send us your info. We'll definitely give you a shout out. And I think, if you do anything, $30 or more, we'll try to give you some producer credits on the doc or the motion picture that we got coming up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we got a lot going on. So that's $ the Big Boss Filmworks. If you want to support the cause, we appreciate it. And with supporting the cause, we got to give a shout out to our sponsors. One of them, Vano's Apparel, located on Davidson between Dexter and Linwood.
That's right.
Home of Detroit's flyest apparel for men and women. Absolute institution there on the west side. So when you go into Vano's Apparel, again located on Davidson Avenue between Linwood and Dexter, you tell them that the good people at Motown Mafia Podcast or Big Boss Filmworks sent you, and they will give you all the love and discount that you would want.
That's right.
And shout out to Brother Bow Wow, my niece Kayla over there, and to the homie Vano. We go back, and just a great guy.
Yeah.
It is truly the Rodeo Drive of the hood.
That's right.
He's got a great eye for fashion. Season's about to change. Back to school is coming back. Give Vano a call if you're in the city. And if you ain't in the city, if you out in the burbs or Northwest Detroit, check out Rack Certified, Brother Jared.
Okay, yeah.
Right into Southfield Plaza, right there at off Southfield Road, just north of 12 Mile.
Okay.
Was just out there hollering at Jaron over the weekend. Stocking up. He's got your AKA Alpha, all your Black Greek apparel for anybody in the Black Greek world. If you're looking for some stuff, that's Rack Certified right there at the Southfield Plaza, right next to the Burlington Coat Factory. Also, he's still going to a few people where you can get some Negro League apparel.
Wow. Okay.
And some regular apparel.
Okay.
So yeah, for any of your Black Greek apparel, or if you want to get you some Negro League apparel or just some regular apparel, he's got some great stuff out there too. So that's Rack Certified. Again, just ask for Brother Jaron. Tell him the good people at Big Boss Filmworks and Motown Mafia Podcast sent you, and he will take care of you.
Oh, yeah.
All righty. So, Lou, we were talking about how this started. Remember we were having a conversation a couple weeks, how this whole genre began.
Right.
And I was really trying.
Game over, right?
Game over, right?
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to look at it yet?
Did not get a chance to check that
Well,
one.
I'm sure most of the family out there, or if you haven't, look it up. A brother by the name of Troy Reed. Long before there was Motown Mafia Podcast, before there was American Dope, before there was Vlad, a documentary came out called Game Over. A brother named Troy Reed did it. This is back with what's it called, the VH1?
Okay. VHS.
VHS.
Yeah,
So
the videotapes.
Right, so you know how far streaming, there was not even a word. A stream was a piece of water running through a forest, was a stream.
So this had to be like 95, 96,
This
something
was
like that.
This was, because I'm still, that was out when I was still in Harlem.
Okay.
I'm thinking 96, 97.
Oh yeah, definitely.
'Cause
The videotapes were still.
Yeah, I was
banging
I was at the Mart, and the brother named EU who was down with the big fella Blue.
Yeah.
He had a shop also next to me. On that note, great shop. Anybody who remembers those New York Harlem days of the Mart 125, there's a documentary called The Mart 125.
Yes, I watched that one.
And
awesome.
a lot of history there, man.
Wish I had a chance to have graced the Mart, man. That looked like it was live.
It was a special thing we had there.
Yeah.
We didn't know, man. Spanish Ave with the Leathers, brother Carlos, world famous leather. Clary brother Sticks in the back with the fur coats. Beautiful sister Tracy. Jedediah was making and had brother Blue, big fella holding it down with Black Man's Jeweler.
Right on.
Us at African Nights with the Coogee and Joe Boxer. It was it was the kind of thing now all we be crying and saying we need to have in the Black community. We had it.
You had it. Wow.
40 black businesses all under one roof.
Oh, see.
Directly across the street from the Apollo. But anyway, so the brother EU had a video tape shop inside the Mart.
Okay.
And when this Game Over came over, and Game Over is a documentary, the first documentary that chronicles kind of that whole AZ Alpo Rich Porter thing.
Mm-hmm.
And hence by the title of the doc, Game Over,
Mm-hmm.
Brother Reed was suggesting that after the demise of Rich Porter and the subsequent situation with Alpo and AZ, that the game as they knew it in Harlem was over.
Okay.
That it was never going to be like it was there, right?
Exactly.
And then we were speaking off camera. Now that we can look back at this stuff with some kind of historical context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it was the end. It wasn't the end of the game. The game don't ever end. The name of the players changed, but the game and the way it had been from the late '60s into the '70s, even rolling into
the remnants in the '80s.
The remnants of the '80s. That particular incident with those three Harlem guys and just how tragic it was with the whole kidnapping and friend betrayal. That was like the end of innocence.
Right. Exactly.
And it was a preview of what was coming to a neighborhood near you.
Chaos.
Chaos, murder, and mayhem. But it led me to a bigger thought of when did, because you've heard it said that the game is over, the game ain't the same, but when did the game end? Some people would say, you talk to people from Pops and them generation, the original OG generation, they'll say the game was over in the '70s and the end of what's been now regarded, people in this business call the golden era of drugs, or the golden era of the black kingpin. So we're talking the early '70s through mid '70s, where thousands of African American men in each major city in this country became millionaires.
Right.
There was that French Connection and China White thing out there, and the authorities were not yet giving people basketball scores for getting caught selling drugs.
Right.
The Italians pretty much handled the importing of it, so there wasn't a whole bunch. You couldn't go find you a Mexican plug or this. You might had you a few outliners like a Frank Matthews or Richard Wakefield here in Detroit.
Right.
Leslie Atkins, who had direct importing abilities from Asia to get that China White in. But the money that those guys made, you're talking, the rumors of the made the wealth roll out. Eddie Jackson to have 100 Cadillacs on the street. You had brothers like Little Melvin in Baltimore, Felix Mitchell out of Oakland, California. Obviously Frank Matthews, Nicky Barnes. I mean, the amount of money that those guys made then, a lot of people from that era said that once they all got locked up, the laws changed, and that the game was all over as far as black men being able to become independently wealthy in a year or two, that had ended.
Yeah, the leadership had went to pot, basically, if you ask me. I mean, the leadership from the kingpin.
Yeah, and I think sometime when they're saying that it was just never going to be the same again, they understood why they were doing what they were doing.
Yeah.
They were going to make so much money.
Right.
And be able to have such an influence in their community. The numbers we were just doing, some of them, Pee Wee Kirkland.
Right.
16 make, the 16-year-olds, even that YBI and many other things would follow after that. But you just weren't going to have 16-year-olds making $5-10 million. I mean, that's a unique thing of the H game, of the boy game, when you can take the product and multiply it by 50, 100 times. You can put a 50 on it, and then the kind of money you just can't do that in other scenarios.
Right.
So they couldn't make that kind of money. Some of the people that when you were a kid, that you heard about. So I was just some of the names, and we're going to chronicle Some of these guys, and if I miss some names, I'm sure I'm gonna miss some names on that golden era, as it was called here, like in Detroit. The guy Big Son, he was off the Dexter area.
Okay.
I think somebody that your family knew, Texas Slim.
Yeah, the old man in Texas Slim.
John Clausen.
Yeah, Clausen.
Henry Marzette.
Yes.
Richard Wakefield. Leroy and Bernard Canton. Leroy Collier. Frank Nitti or Frank Usher.
Yeah.
Obviously, and Eddie Jackson and crew.
Mm-hmm.
Some would say that after that era, the game was over. That everything that would happen after that, it was never going to be as glorious or as profitable as then.
And has it?
I was saying, one could make, when we were discussing this Troy Reed topic of the game is over, and he was making that statement based upon the world that he had saw and New York that he had saw. But some would say that, yeah, the game was actually over by the end of the 70s.
By 79.
By 79.
Once disco died, the game died.
Good analogy.
Absolutely. Man.
Some could make that argument.
People stopped laughing at Cheech and Chong right around 79.
Is that when that ended?
They stopped laughing at that whole drug it was the Reagan era, like right after. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and with that, same era when Troy's coming out with this, it's right after again the doc came over. It's about the Alpo thing. We had covered a brother called Doo-Wop, him and his man Craig O. But again, they were making their money selling powder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is the pre-crack era. Some would say the game, as far as being the game, ended when the crack era began, even though the crack era created lots of millionaires,
It was this
but it was a different kind of thing.
But it wasn't the same.
It was not the same.
It was not the same. I mean, you think about the chaos and destruction that the whole crack era initiated in, and how we spoke off camera about, hell, everybody got into the game.
Well, and I think so. It used to be, and you're old enough, you remember it. In this town, there was distinctions, right? You see a guy or you had a family member, you'd be like, he in the game.
Right. Yeah.
It was, most people were not in the game or aspired to be in the game.
That's right.
And it was a real distinction between those who was quote unquote in the game, or as the kids say nowadays, about that life.
Right.
And all of that kind of thing, or as we used to say back in the day in the 80s, he's a real one.
Right.
He really is.
He's a hell of a fella.
He's about that.
Right.
You know. And maybe the game got over once the crack era came, and everybody with a paycheck could go buy an ounce for $600, and then get in the game. And we're throwing it out there. I'd love to hear you guys' feedback or opinions in Europe. And I think depending on where you're at in your city, when things really changed, when did we get to where we're at now? Then we were speaking on the evolution of this thing. Meech, by the end of the 90s and the 2000s, shout out to the whole BMF family out there, by the way. Glad T is home. Looking forward to season 3 of BMF coming up soon. Mm-hmm. But you think about when Meech is in rap videos, like with Akon and Jeezy.
Right.
Where being in the game has now become a part of pop culture.
Right. And that has echoed for the past 20, 25 years.
And you think about the mob's philosophy or other ethnic groups that they say this is our thing.
Right.
The Costa Nostra is our thing. This is not something that we talk about or that everybody should know about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, we ain't passing judgment on nobody or trying to throw shade. Times change and we get all that. I mean, but just when the game is the question I guess we want some feedback on, is the game over? And if the game is over, when did it end? And maybe when we say game over, maybe we're asking when did it become the point that we got to now, when everybody is supposedly in the game.
When you got the guy who calls himself a crack dealer dealing crack off of his 10 speed light.
Some would say that was another indication that the game was over.
Right.
That you could be hustling. But our brother Cavario was actually speaking about when because he comes from a real crime family,
Mm-hmm.
and when that era was like changing, the powder cocaine going into the crack era,
Mm-hmm.
and he went to his superiors and his family and said we should get involved in that. They couldn't even wrap their head around why would somebody in the H game play like they ain't enough money in it now. And that again, when I say that, people would go on to make fortunes, and Pops, when he came home in the '80s, he ended up having we did the thing in the Bahamas. I mean, we were getting both the boy and the girl out of the Bahamas, but times had changed and the market had changed and all of that, but it wasn't the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely. Completely flipped.